Hello, trumpet players and musicians. This is video number 3 in our sight reading video series. In this video, we're going to talk about look at the music. This may seem like a common sense topic, but in my career, and I'm going to remind you that I've been teaching trumpet lessons since 1980. In this decades-long career, I have seen this as a problem. I've recognized it as a problem for students who want to be able to read music. The students will often, once they feel like they've got it, look away from the music. And sometimes that's a good thing, actually. If you think about it, that is a good thing if you're trying to play by ear. If you're trying to improvise, if you're trying to be a jazz player that doesn't have to look at the music, if you're trying to memorize the music, it's a good thing to do that. But it doesn't help your reading. If you have difficulties sight reading, then one of the things you want to do is make sure that everything that you practice, you're actively engaged with the music that you're reading. If you don't do that, you will not foster the connection between what the music looks like and that automatic response that makes it sound correct. Remember that good sight reading has to be automatic. I played a gig one time, not one time, but I used to play with this band, let's put it that way. I used to play with this band. Here in Houston, we call it New York style. Basically, what they mean by New York style is that it's mostly two-beat music, and the music doesn't stop for 2, 3, 4 hours at a time. And it's a sight reading gig. You start the gig, you flip the page, you flip the page, you flip the page, you flip the page, or you flip the page until you get to the end of the book. And I'm telling you, I actually like that gig because I start zoning out. I start daydreaming and I'm someplace else. I'm not missing any notes. I'm not missing any rhythms. But my mind is someplace else. And I think that's a, a, a wonderful demonstration of how automatic sight reading needs to be. Sight reading needs to be so automatic that your mind can go on vacation. What's that guy's name? There's a jazz singer says your mind is on vacation. He's one of my favorite singers. I can't remember his name right now. I'm terrible with names. Yes, we want to be able to put our mind on vacation and still get all the notes right, still get all the phrasing and all that wonderful stuff. But that's not going to happen when you're not looking at the music. And a lot of you do this. Like I said, I've been teaching since 1980. And I see this so often. You know what? Now that we do most of the lessons online, I see it more now than I ever did. Because we're facing each other. And usually, I don't know about other students, other teachers, but when I think back to every private lesson I ever had before, even as a teacher and as a student, we always sat together like we were in a trumpet section, and that's nice too. But if you're facing each other, you see stuff in the student's face that you don't see when you're sitting next to each other. So I'm seeing this more and more now because the students will look at the music and then look away to play it. Sometimes they won't even, we do a lot of repetition in the lessons, sometimes they won't even look at it the second time to play it the second time. And I'm telling you, if you practice that way, you're not going to advance your sight reading as much. This is so, we talk about all this stuff. Do duets to help with your sight reading. We're going to talk about that stuff too. There's all kinds of things you can do to work on your sight reading. Traditional stuff, and the traditional stuff works. But I'm telling you, that traditional stuff is going to be a lot more of a struggle if when you practice, you're not looking at the music. Because you're not creating that automatic bond between what the music looks like and that automatic response. When I'm talking about the automatic response, what I'm saying is you see the note, and as a result of seeing the note, you hear what it sounds like. And the next thing that happens is that your body automatically goes to all of the positions that it needs to go to play the music that's on that line, on that page, on that stuff. That's what we're striving to do when we work on our sight reading. We want it to be automatic like that. So, the opposite of this, and this is something I figured out in the late 80s. I had a lot of trouble improvising. When I first started improvising, maybe it wasn't the late 80s, it might have been the early 80s. I remember trying to improvise and nothing would come to me. My mind would be a blank. And at the time, I was reading all the stuff I was doing for jazz. And I made a decision back then that from that point forward, if it had anything to do with jazz, I was not going to look at the music. And that's just as important. Remember that it's always the right tool for the problem. We want to match the tool with the problem. If what you're trying to accomplish is to be a better improviser, someone who memorizes music better, if you want to be better at playing by ear, those things you must absolutely not look at the music while you're playing. Now that might sound amazing, right? You only heard half of the story because what I did was, as a regular practice, I still do this today. As a regular practice, I would look at the music, sing and finger it. Then I'd look away and play it. Whatever I was practicing for jazz, that's the process I still follow to today. I look at it, I look away and play it. I look at it, I look away and play it. I do this for everything related to jazz. With learning how to sight read, it has to be the opposite way around. You have to look at the music. There's no way you're going to develop this automatic reaction that we're talking about if you're not looking at the music. So, and this applies to everything that you practice. It applies to your warm-up. It applies to your technical studies. It applies to your etudes. It applies to every single thing. There is no exception. If you're trying to work on your sight reading, then the first step for that, well, not the first step is to do that reading stuff that we talked in the previous video. So let's say this is the second step. The second step is to make sure that everything you practice, you are looking at the music. This doesn't, by the way, I think one of the excuses we get is I can already play it. That is when this is more beneficial. right? The very moment when this becomes most beneficial, a lot of you are not looking at the music. You look away. When you got the music down, you've nailed it. And you make yourself look at it while you're playing it in this nailed fashion. That's when you're going to derive the most mental benefit from associating what this music is, what it feels like, how it sounds, with what it looks like on the screen. Screen, right? That tells you how many internet lessons I've been doing. On the paper. Yes, if you are looking away, you're not getting that. I know I've said that 20 times in this video already. It can't be said too many times. If you're not looking at the music, you're not going to get this benefit. And it is going to make learning to sight read much more difficult. I hope that makes sense. If you have questions, please ask below. Other than that, God bless you, and we will see you on the next video. Thank you very much.